Welcome to my very first formal review. Today I'm reviewing Exoticca, the travel company we recently traveled with to Peru. Now before I start my review, I want to mention that this Peruvian adventure was absolutely amazing. I already have a couple of vlogs on my channel. Go ahead and check them out. But today it's all about Exoticca. It's about how the tour company delivered what they promised to be delivered and how it met our expectations. Now, this review will be absolutely honest. I'm going to do my best to deliver the best, honest opinion. And I'm introducing a new rating system. Instead of using 5-star system, I'm using a 5-globe system. First of all, to differentiate it with from anyone else, but also to reflect the fact that this travel channel, the reviews are all about travel. So in order to get 5 globes from me, it will be very challenging first of all, but it will also mean that I'm absolutely recommending the service or the product that I'm reviewing, and you can go ahead and buy it and use it without hesitation. 4 globes would mean that it's still a recommended option, but there is still some improvements that could be made to the product or service. Rating of 3 would mean that there's a lot of room for improvement, and I doubt I will ever make a review with 2 or 1 globes, because I like to recommend and review something that you guys will find helpful. Before we start, I want to say that this amazing Peruvian adventure was so great that I decided to do a couple of vlogs, and in fact you can find those vlogs on my YouTube channel. I had one vlog about Lima, I have another vlog about Machu Picchu and Sacred Valley, and I have another vlog about Cusco and our epic climb to the Rainbow Mountain. Alright, first of all I want to confirm again, this review is about Peruvian trip by Exoticca. It's not about Exoticca company overall, it's about the trip that we took to Peru. Now, Exoticca, you can check their website, it's exoticca.net. They do trips all over the world. Okay, this was the first time we did a trip with them, so I can't talk about other adventures, but this Peruvian adventure is what I'm going to be talking about today. Well, first of all, I want to talk about the itinerary that we had for this trip. The entire duration of the trip was, I think it was 9 days. Yes, it was 9 days, but really the trip itself was 7 days, because it took us the entire day to travel from Toronto to Lima. We had a connection flight in Mexico City, and then on the way back, same thing. We had to fly from Lima to Mexico City and then to Toronto. Each of those 2 flights were about 5 to 6 hours, with about 3 and 4 hours of connecting, waiting at the airport in Mexico City. So the entire trip from Toronto to Lima and from Lima to Toronto was about 13-14 hours, which is quite a bit. I would definitely prefer it if that was a direct flight, but I understand that when travel agencies come up with the packages, they try to reduce cost. And speaking of the packages, this package with Exoticca included all the flights, all other transfers, and also included all the hotels as well as the breakfast at those hotels. One thing I want to mention is that with Exoticca, we didn't get to feel the representation. We traveled with other tour companies before, and definitely even now, 7 years later, since we had this travel with another company in China, I still remember the guy who represented us. That person traveled with us from city to city. He was actually flying with us from city to city. Versus here at Exoticca, we didn't get that kind of treatment. We had a new person in every city, and they were mostly meeting us at the airport, taking us to the hotel, and that's about it. The entire trip had, I believe, only 2 tours. One tour was a tour of Lima, half-a-day tour, and another tour was a trip to Machu Picchu. Now, on that first tour in Lima, I want to mention that it was happening on day 2. So we came to Lima, we spent an entire day in the city, And then on the second day, this tour was only in the afternoon. That was day 2, and the next day we were flying away. So I think that was something that is not very convenient, because if you come to a new city, you want to experience right away. I normally create my own itineraries, which is what, by the way, I did here. For all the days in Peru, I created my own itinerary, because I knew already that there won't be many tours by the company. But for people who are not used to that, that would have been very confusing, because again, they would come to the city and then they would have to wait a day and a half before they experience a tour. And I'm glad that we did our own walking. We took other tours within the city, because I knew that, you know, the tour that provided by Exoticca is limited. And even the tour that was provided by Exoticca, while it was great, it missed some of the key points that were promised in the itinerary. For example, the Larcomar Mall, which is the central mall in Peru. Also the whole park by the ocean was missed, and also they promised us to take us to the chocolate factory. It didn't happen, but nevertheless, I think overall the people with Exoticca were very nice, very kind, same like all other people in Peru. When they met us at the airport and they take us back to the airport, they were extremely patient. They waited until last minute, until we checked in, and then they left us. So the people were amazing. I think there's some logistical challenges that could be improved, and one of those challenges was the fact that they would pick us up to go to the airport extremely early. Like, I think their policy is like 4 hours before the flight. Especially on the way to Cusco, they picked us up at 3:30 a.m. and we were there 3 hours before the flight, which definitely impacted our sleep quality on that day. And that also happened on another day. So I think that's one thing that I would recommend to Exoticca, is to revisit their pickup policy, especially when it's early in the morning. There's no traffic whatsoever. It took us until half an hour to get to the airport, then we had to wait almost for 3 hours for our plane. I also want to mention communication with Exoticca before the trip. As I mentioned, I like to schedule my trip before we go there, but there was no communication whatsoever about the internal flights. I didn't know when we are flying to Cusco from Lima, when we have our returning flight back to Lima, and because of that I couldn't book trips or schedule my activities, because I didn't know whether we were flying in the morning or in the evening. So eventually, after many emails to the customer service, they sent me some information, not everything, but definitely that's something that they could improve in terms of providing their customers all the information about the trip. The choice of hotels was absolutely amazing. The hotel in Miraflores in central Lima was absolutely amazing. The hotel in Urubamba was absolutely magnificent. It was right in the middle of the mountains, and it was like a resort. It was absolutely stunning. All the hotels included breakfast, as I mentioned earlier, which is great because you didn't have to go and search for breakfast first thing in the morning. There was a great group of people from all over North America. I think most people were from Canada and the US. But as I mentioned, unfortunately, because we didn't have a lot of groups, a lot of tours organized by the company, we didn't have to get to know all those people. But the group was amazing. Everyone was very excited about exploring the country. I think itinerary overall for a 7-day tour was pretty good because there's so much more to see and do in Peru, but this was a relatively short trip, as I said 9 days, but the trip itself was 7 days, 7 full days in Peru. And I think what was covered in those 7 days, what Exoticca included in those 7 days, was pretty good. Again, we explored Lima, we stayed there for a couple of days. We explored the Sacred Valley and of course the Machu Picchu, and then we did spend a couple of days in Cusco, and then we took our own tour to explore the famous Rainbow Mountain of Peru. So based on everything that I just mentioned to you, what should I rate this tour? Should it be 3 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars? I want to be fair with other companies that we traveled with, and I want to be as honest and as objective as possible. Even though it will never be 100% objective because we're biased. Obviously, we spend the time with this tour company, but I'm gonna give you absolutely my best rating, most honest one, and it's gonna be, drum roll, 3.5 globes. The reason I gave them 3.5 globes because overall the company is very solid, at least based on what we saw. Great itinerary, great people, logistics were great, but with all those things that I mentioned, there were no tours per se. And again, having traveled with other companies, normally I would have expected more tours, more involvements with people, more personal touch, and then certain smaller things like, you know, getting up at 3 p.m. could have been done later on. All those little things made me decide to give it 3.5 globes. Doesn't mean that you avoid this company. I think it's a great company. At least, again, I'm talking about the Peruvian adventure, but you have to be prepared. Like, you have to have your own itinerary. You have to know what additional tours you're gonna get, even though they had some optional tours, but I think in one place, but that was not enough. You have to be prepared to get up in the morning if you have to, and generally speaking, be prepared to spend a little bit extra time commuting from one city to another. Overall, I would recommend Exoticca's Peruvian trip. I think overall it was great, but again, because of certain logistical challenges, they can still improve there. I give them 3.5 globes, and I want to thank you for watching this review. I also want to ask you to give me ideas. What do you want to see in my upcoming reviews? What kind of products or services you want me to review? Of course, it has to be around travel, something to do with world travelers mindset. Also, if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can see my future reviews, so you can see my future vlogs from all over the world. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you soon.